Hey guys, it's Kate, and in this speed build I'm building a house in between lavender fields on a 64 by 64 lot in Windenburg. I can't help but pronounce it German because the word just looks so German to me. However, I had this idea on my mind for the longest time, and now I finally build it, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. As you can see, at first I used the terrain tools just to create a couple of hills, and then I used the tool that you can use to smoothen out the terrain, and I just smoothed it. But this way the hills just merged a little, and the look of the individual hills kind of got lost. You couldn't really see them, so I used the tool to bring down the terrain to kind of accentuate them. I kind of brought down the terrain in between them just so you were able to see the individual hills a little bit more. And I had this idea on my mind for the longest time, but I actually started to build something like this before the terrain tools were released, and I wasn't really happy with how it turned out. And here you can see how I'm starting to place the lavender, and I cut out a lot of the process. I just left in the parts where you can see how I'm starting to work on a individual hill, and you can see how it turned out because I placed lavender for hours and hours, and even sped up. You would have watched me placing lavender for like 30 minutes, and I don't think that anyone is down for this, so I just had to cut out a lot of the stuff. It took me a long time. And usually I start to work on the house first, and this is kind of unusual because this all started with the landscaping process. And I just turned on a podcast and I just laid back and chilled and placed the lavender. It was a very tedious task, but it was also fun. In a weird way, this kind of relaxes me. I said this before. I don't know, it's just so relaxing for me to do something like this. And here you can see that I'm raising another section, and and this is maybe a weird way to explain it, but when you think of a comic or something, of a cartoon, when you have this beautiful different hills in the background and they all have this beautiful shape, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a weird thought that I had on my mind, a weird idea. I just wanted to create this beautiful looking hills, and I wanted to place the lavender in a way so that they have a beautiful line and just draw the eye in a way to the house and all that. I just try to work it out somehow and make it look beautiful. And here I'm using the terrain paint tool to create a curved path that leads from the bottom to the top. When you are looking at the hills and at the way that I placed the lavender, it all kind of flows together. It almost looks like a beautiful wave, and I wanted to create a path that kind of flows well with all the alignment of the lavender and the hills. I wanted everything to look very natural and flow together well, so I didn't want to use stairs that lead from the bottom to the top or something. I wanted it all to look very natural, and I used some rocks to simply place them at the edge of the curved path just to have some little border, just so the path kind of doesn't get lost in between other lavender. I wanted the path to look like a proper path, so using stones or rocks for this is a perfect way when you are sticking to a natural, realistic kind of landscaping. I also used the rocks in between the lavender fields, and I also placed them at the bottom. I did not want to use some kind of fence that I could simply place all around the lot because I wanted to keep it all very natural, as I said, and sizing them up and placing them at the edge all around the lot was kind of a perfect way to create this kind of look. And I placed them in between the fields just to make it look a little bit more random and realistic. I didn't want there to be only lavender, which is also where I placed some trees in between, and I think that these trees just have the perfect look for this. It's kind of a bit Mediterranean, and there are a lot of lavender fields in France, for example, and in many other countries, but I was kind of going for that very dreamy, beautiful look. And I think I was a little bit inspired by my last build, maybe, at least a tiny little bit, the Tuscan Dream Mansion, that got a Maxis fave, by the way. I'm so excited. I noticed yesterday and I was like, oh my god, this is so exciting, and I'm so happy and so grateful. And I don't know, I think that it kind of inspired me to use these trees. As I said, I kind of started building on a lavender field before the terrain tool update. This was, I don't know, weeks ago. But I think that lavender fields in real life are just the most beautiful thing ever. They just look so stunning. I'm not really really fond of the smell, but I just think that they look so beautiful, so stunning. And I tried to create something similar, but of course everything was just flat, and in real life a field is mostly flat. I mean, this kind of makes sense, but it just looked so boring. It didn't look dreamy enough. I don't know, I just couldn't create the look that I was going for, so I just kind of stopped working on it. And then now in the last days I thought of making something with terrain, and then I thought, oh my god, the lavender field, maybe this would be a cool idea, and I could just place the lavender on the hills so that they create these cool lines up upon the hills, and it would look so cool. Luckily it turned out quite good. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and this build really has a extreme focus on the landscaping. The house itself is also so cute in my opinion, and really does the landscaping justice, but the lavender fields are just the star of this build in my opinion. The funny thing is that even though this is on a 64x64 lot, the house is quite small because there's just so much landscaping. This is really just a small house in between lavender fields. The house has 2 bedrooms, 1 master bedroom, 1 kid's room, a small office, and 1 bathroom. It's just a small, very manageable house. It's not a mansion. I mean, technically it probably is compared to real life. It is a beautiful little mansion, I don't know, but the focus for this build is really on the landscaping, and it took the longest time. And for the house, at first I wasn't really sure. As you will see, I'm going to switch up things a lot. I built the house itself, the shape, then I added some color, but then as you will see, I'm going to switch up the color multiple times. I wasn't really happy, and at first I wasn't really sure if I'm liking the house at all, and I wasn't sure if I'm not happy with the shape or if it's just the color scheme and the details. And then after working on it for a while, I really love how it turned out, and I'm happy that I decided against building a completely new house because I don't know, it just looks beautiful and it goes so well. And I didn't really have any kind of specific theme for the house itself in mind. It kind of went into this kind of Tudor direction. I wanted to have a house that doesn't look modern or something. I wanted a cozy house that kind of goes well with the whole dreamy atmosphere that I tried to create with the lavender fields. I really wanted to have those cartoon, dreamy, fairy tale Disney look. I don't know, I wasn't really inspired by anything in real life, but this was kind of just the atmosphere that I tried to create, and I think that the house kind of goes well with the whole theme. And as you saw, I decided to raise the foundation a little bit. I think it's just so convenient that we can now just drag the arrow up a little bit, and that we have so many more options when it comes to the foundations, that we can make the foundation very high, only raise it a little bit. And then I used some rocks to just place them all around the lot to hide the foundation. This probably sounds weird because I raised the foundation in the first place, but this way the rocks are not hiding parts of the walls, but only of the foundation, and it just creates a dreamy, cool look. And I also used the rocks to create another little curved path that leads to the side. I wanted to have some little side entrance and also, of course, a front entrance. And these are benches that are part of outdoor retreat, and I simply used them to create some kind of stone wall all around the top, and I created a little round shape, and I used the same technique that I used for the lavender. I simply hold down Alt, press the mouse button, and rotated them freely. And you have to use the Sims 3 camera for this. It doesn't work with the Sims 4 camera. I played all Sims games, Sims 1, 2, 3, and 4, so I don't know, I kind of got so used to the Sims 3 camera when I played Sims 3 for years, and when Sims 4 was released, I kind of simply stuck to it. I simply used the Sims 3 camera. I never moved over to the Sims 4 camera somehow. And these flowers are part of Get Famous, and I think it's just so cool to use objects in a different way. I don't know, for example, I've never built a jungle build before, I think, but I'm using a lot of stuff of the jungle pack all the time, and it's just, any pack really adds so much to this game, even if you're not building in this type of style. So if you are never planning to build some type of celebrity mansion, Get Famous is still a absolutely great addition for building. You can use objects for any type of style. I used the arches that came with Get Famous for my last build, for example, and my last build had a absolutely Mediterranean kind of style, but you can kind of use objects for different kind of things. I just love to use the little wall decorations of the Jungle Pack, for example, as some type of cornerstone. You can really use anything for all different kind of things. And here I'm raising another part of the terrain because I decided to add there some lavender as well. At first I wasn't sure if I would maybe, I don't know, extend the house maybe. So when I started building, I only placed the hills and the lavender in the front. But here I'm kind of extending the lavender. And here I'm adding more benches to create a stone wall all around the lot. I also added a small garden. It's not really that big, and in the back there is this very steep slope that kind of happened because I could have moved the whole house a little bit to the front, but then I would have lost some space in the front, and the main focus was really on the lavender fields and the beautiful hills. So the back is kind of just like this very steep slope, and I tried to hide parts of it with some rocks, and I'm also going to place some trees in the back that is kind of hiding this. Unfortunately, it's impossible as of now to add some terrain paint to steep slopes, so it has this quite boring gray color, but I just tried to hide it a little bit with some trees. And the same kind of happened for the lavender fields. Parts of the hills are quite steep, and so there is some gray in between the green lawn underneath, but there's nothing you can do about that. And I also didn't want to change the whole shape because I just needed some steeper slopes in between the hills to create a nice hill for the lavender field. So it is what it is. And for the inside, I was also going for a quite rustic look. I kind of wanted the inside to look the same way that the outside looks. And as I said, this house isn't really big, and here I'm using wallpaper that is part of Get Famous. But then I decided to just go for some wood. And these columns are also part of Get Famous, and I'm going to use the kitchen that came with Parenthood. I used all kinds of different stuff just to create some kind of rustic, beautiful interior. But I still wanted to use some stuff of Get Famous. I wanted this house to look, I don't know, rustic, but like a very kind of like a rich place a little bit. These curtains are just the most beautiful thing ever. I think they are my favorite curtains out of the whole game. They're part of the vintage Glamour stuff pack. I think the pack itself is just so cool. I mean, the fact that there's a butler that comes with the pack is probably the coolest thing ever, even though butlers are sometimes useless and weird. But I think it's a cool pack. I placed a little island counter. I love to do this. And then I just added the table to the room itself. There's no separate dining room because there wasn't really a lot of space for this. I decided to have a bigger living room with a little chimney area, so I just placed the dining table in the kitchen. But I think it has a lovely size. It's not huge, but sometimes that's cool. I have a tendency to build big builds, and I mean, this is a huge build, but I don't know, I think that it turned out quite good. And here I'm working on the living room and the chimney area. I built a chimney on the outside, as you saw. For this, I'm just using a room that is 2 grids big, and then I'm adding a regular chimney on top. And then when I'm doing that, I always try to place the fireplace on the inside right at the chimney, so it's a little bit realistic. So that's what I did. And this sofa is also part of Get Famous. I wasn't sure which color I would want to choose, but I stayed within a very brown and kind of darker theme. But I also used a lot of white just so there's a bit of contrast. I didn't want everything to look too dark or even sad, so I don't know. I think it looks a little bit French. I could be wrong. And as I said, there are lots of lavender fields in France, so I don't know, I think it kind of goes very well with the whole theme, but sometimes I'm not really sure what style I'm building in. I'm just building, and sometimes I have a specific idea and I really want to nail some kind of style, but sometimes, or most of the times, it kind of happens. And at first I wasn't sure if I would want to add another bathroom to the top, but then I decided to simply build a office, as you can see. Mainly because this house is quite small. There are only 2 bedrooms, so probably there are only going to live like 3 Sims, and 1 bathroom should be enough, but a little office space is always important. You could also add some other stuff to the office, maybe a chess table. There's not that much space, but I think it kind of goes well, and I decided to just build a pink, beautiful, romantic kids room. I again used the vintage Glamour stuff pack curtains, and these paintings are part of Get Famous. They're just so cool. I just love the whole style. And for the back, I decided to add a pool. The pool is quite small, but I figured that a pool is always a must for a kind of mansion build. And even though it's quite small, it still has this type of witch mansion feel to it. And I used so much space for the lavender field landscaping, and I thought it would be sad to not really have a little pool at least. And here I changed some colors for the last time, and this is kind of the final look. I switched the wallpaper to the color that has this very warm brown in it. Okay guys, this is it. This speed build is slowly coming to an end. As always, I included some screenshots, and of course you can also find this house fully furnished on the gallery. I'm going to include all the information down below in the description box, my gallery ID and the name of the lot and other packs I used and all that stuff. And also I forgot to mention this in my last video, but finally I have an Instagram account. So if you're interested in following me, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is @KateEmerald, because KateEmerald is always already used for some reason. I'm also going to add this down below so you can check me out there. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook if you want. It's also @KateEmerald there. And for some reason the Sims community is very active on Twitter, so you will probably find me posting the most stuff, including some small life updates and all that stuff on Twitter. So follow me if you would like to. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.